culture and community-engaged design strategies into the process of equitable community planning and development. Yeah. And it's the big idea is that you bring artists to the table as partners, full community development. And so this is one thing that I've learned, and that I hope to pass on today. I stand in front of a lot of city councils, and I put forward policy that we develop with the community and really to get them forward in plans. And I know that first thing we have to do is we have to talk about it. It's just that they're not going to hear me if I don't. So I do. So we stand there and we talk about all the economic development opportunities that can come when working with artists and culture bearers and arts organizations. Next slide. But the thing that I've learned, and I'm still learning, is how to talk about you're going there, good for it. How to talk about the impacts that the arts can have. Because honestly, as a country, we don't have the language. I can't go in there into a city council and just assume that we're going to have this back and forth of what this is all about. And it's taken me years to learn to advocate for having artists and culture bearers at the table. So I hope to pass some of that along. So how to understand the practice. Go ahead. So before I get to talking about like how we talk about it, I think there's one step back. So go ahead. One more. Okay. I'm going to read this out because I'm not sure if you guys can see it back at the end of the table. But the thing that I learned, I'll tell you the story where this really hit. So one time we were in Austin and we had this big, huge public art grant where we were putting 5 artists and artist teams in each of the newly created council districts. We had an at-large system of local government, which was totally racist. And advocates had finally made for a place-based system of local governments. And we got this public art grant to put artists and artist teams in each of the new council districts to say, what is this about? And so we were working with teams from the different districts, and I had them all in a room like this, and I was talking to them, and I said, like, okay, what I need you guys to do is to come up with a community engagement plan, tell me what you're going to do and what you think the impacts are going to be. And they all looked at me with this big WTF right across their foreheads. They were like, we don't. The room was real warm. It got real cold real fast. Because I didn't know what they were doing. And what I've come to understand since then is that my world as an urban planner, my world of standing in front of the dais and talking with council members, is that there is a very traditional project-oriented planning. It is product-based. You know the outcome. And this is the thing that you guys all know from development processes. It's all decided way upstream what's going to happen. You know, by the time the project starts, proposals have been put in, budgets have been allocated. These outcomes, they are known, they're decided, and moving them, might as well move a mountain. Right. And so in this orientation, it starts with the outcome, and we all know this. Then you make the plan, then you make the timeline, and then you make the tasks, and you execute. And you know, okay, good. We need some of that in our system. We need clarity, we need transparency. That's all good. But what if the outcomes are wrong? And that's where the artists are like these ninjas, because they come in and they say, we don't work like that. We don't know what the outcomes are going to be because we are process-based. And so we start with the question, not the answer. And then we think of an approach. And then we have this whole process of discovery, and then we'll tell you what the outcomes will be. And so next slide. Oh yeah, and I'm leaving these on the desktop, so you're welcome to take these slides and share them and do all that. Yeah, the next one. And so what that means for us, so when we bring artists on, it means we have to be bridge sitters. because we're working in really complex scenarios. You're gonna go and you're gonna stand in front of the dais and you're gonna say this project needs to be adopted. It means you need to speak both languages. And so and this is where I think the arts are so powerful, because you want to move needles, but in a public forum, you can't move needles if you're just doing it in facts. You gotta hit the heart, you gotta hit the gut. And again, as an urban planner, I don't have those tools. So, okay, next one. So, perspectives. Now, I'll just go through this quickly, but just what I was just saying, this is always, when I present this and I present it to people in local government, it's eye-opening. I don't think it'll be eye-opening to you guys at all. We have community development sector, community members, and the arts. And the way that I just put it as a simple, and actually go to the next one, a simple diagram. When you're in the development world, you're in a product-based orientation. Yes. When you're in the arts world, you're in a process-based orientation. When you work with community, we're full human beings. We come with both inside of us. So if we don't have the ability to access that in our process, how is our product going to reflect ourselves? And the way that, so if you're advocating, this is a little story, just like tuck it in your pocket, because this is what I use when I'm advocating for these projects. I was talking with a banker once. So I work a lot with affordable housing developers and advocating for them to bring artists in as partners in their process. And in this one conversation, there was a banker, because they do a lot of financing, got to figure out the tax credits. And we were talking about art, and he said, you know what? If a developer comes to me and shows me, two developers come to me and show me pro formas, and they're both equally good projects. If one of them has the arts, I know it's going to be great. And so I'm going to go with the one that has the arts. And so I pull that story out when I need to. Okay, so how to talk about the impacts. Okay, next slide. So 2 ways to talk about the impacts. One, just talk about the outcomes. Next slide. This is my cheat sheet. If you go online to creativeplacemakingresearch.org, and again, these slides will be available for you. And it's a real simple, it's just www.creativeplacemakingresearch.org. This was created by an organization called Art Place America. They were around for 10 years. When the NEA did their Our Town program, there were some people on the inside who said, you know what, we can't fund bricks and mortar. We don't have the philanthropic community along with us. We have to bring them on board. And so some people went off and they started Art Place America as a 10-year project, bringing Kresge, Ford, Cerdna, Rockefeller to all do creative placemaking. But they kept to their word. And they closed in 10 years. But as they went out the door, they threw out this project, if you go to the next slide. And what it does is it says it took all the projects that they funded over 10 years, and they said, let's talk about these outcomes. And what the website does, it allows you to find those projects, find the write-ups of them. And what they said, like when you work with arts and community development, we know it's going to transform spaces. We know it's going to reflect community identity, but it gets deeper. When artists and culture bearers are there as partners, you are able much more easily to bridge differences, ensure cultural continuity, cultivate individual agency, have better collaborations, and advance overall well-being. These are all impacts that have been documented. And the thing the reason that I do this work and that I believe in it so strongly is because I know that there are also systemic changes that are possible. The ability, when artists are involved, all these networks get created and the resources start coming. They can imagine new approaches, make issues compelling. They can translate things that are just sometimes so hard to translate. And it can, and I'll talk about a project, begin to heal community trauma carefully.
Folks from Maryland probably have heard of Williamsburg, Virginia. One thing that I did not know about Williamsburg, Virginia, or colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, is that at one time it was second only to Disney World in terms of visitation, so tourist visitation. So there's a a thirst and hunger for the knowledge that we have in our historic Black towns and settlements that could, say perhaps at Africatown in Alabama, bring a lot of tourist dollars, and you know, let's not pretend that we don't live in a somewhat capitalist society, and that if anyone should profit from our history, it should be us. Right? But we have to have something there for people to see, right? And that's exactly what we're working on in Africatown. A vision, a historical vision, from the perspective of African people that can be seen. As a matter of fact, when African Flotilla was rediscovered, I was in Africatown. When I go to every time I go to Africatown, there are people that just show up and bring the children. There's not anything we will get. Actually, well, there's some things coming out. I think the Descendants film premieres next week. Yeah, next week. Yeah, absolutely. Next week, 22nd. I don't know if it premieres on I think it's Netflix. I think it's Netflix. But yeah, so there's that, and then the Heritage House, an actual brick and mortar site, opens in Africatown, I believe, in January. So it started. There are exciting things coming, but we need to do maps and visualizations. Bring that on. Another case study. This is in right there in Houston, Texas, in the Pleasantville community, in the ACTS organization. So in this case, we use asset mapping to assist the community in connecting or aligning their air monitors, air quality monitors, with a mapping program called the EJ Screen, the Environmental Justice Screening Tool, that is also free of charge, so that if indeed we're trying to protect our assets, protect the air quality in our communities along with our historical assets, this is just one way to do that. Here's just again, Overtown community in Miami, work with organization called Girl Trek to do the community walk through there. And then this is what happened afterwards. So we created the asset map, and then I believe Catalyst Miami and other organizations converted that map into a virtual tour that is driven by QR codes. So you can go there right now and take your mobile device, scan that QR code, and get not only full history of some of the exciting sites that were there that were created by Black people, sustained by Black people, including, I believe, that X-ray building I talked about. This is the asset map, or the historical map, is not meant to be an end. It's meant to be a beginning to doing a lot more things moving forward. So this is one of the more exciting things. In fact, I didn't even know that they had created a virtual tour until I was in Overtown, and I saw one of these placards, not this one, it was another one, and when I read the text, I said, wait a minute, I wrote that. I didn't realize that that's what happened. So that's great that happened, beginning with the asset map. And as you can see, the asset map, very low tech, pen and ink, walk in the neighborhood, and you can start from there and end up with something very, very prominent in terms of sharing your community's history. And I believe what's going to happen next in Overtown is the oral history of the elders going to be added to some of these sites. When we first brought the story map out, some of the elders in the community said, oh, those aren't all the sites. There's this, there's that, there's the other. So why not have people who actually live the history? You can hear their voices as you walk through or tour your community, either in person or virtually. Also from Houston, I work with the Air Alliance Houston organization, do community-based mapping in order to place air quality sensors. This work is continuing, so this is just another way of, I actually got to finally, after a year and a half of going nowhere, I think Houston, because of the pandemic, I think this was one of the first places I got to go, was to visit the place where I'd been working virtually with Air Alliance Houston for a year and a half. And so, being on site in Cashmere Gardens, and actually seeing how close the residents are to some of these facilities was really eye-opening for me. Even though I've been to Houston many times, I've never never saw the real proximity of people's homes to some of these facilities. And so, again, getting young people involved. Here's Juan Flores and his son, and we took about literally 4 minutes to get this air quality sensor installed, thanks to the assistance of the young 19-year-old who got it connected to the map. So these purple air sensors connect directly to maps so you can actually see your air quality on a local level. And in fact, in Nashville, we have a flag program, whereas if the air quality in the neighborhood is bad or red, but the regulatory monitor says everything's okay, we can actually put up a red flag at the community center so that parents of asthmatic children can maybe perhaps keep those kids indoors or not engaging in athletic activity during those times. And then there's actually a dashboard of all the air monitors that's being worked on by Air Alliance Houston. So all kinds of air quality monitors. So this is just another form of community-based mapping. In this case, air quality sensors, just showing that all that's available that can be made available to the public and your own citizens. So the same way that we can make a map like this of all air quality sensors in Houston, we can make a map of all major historical Black assets in historic Black towns, literally throughout the country. Just doing this with this exact same methodology. Some acknowledgements, of course, here, and of course, the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice, and some others. More acknowledgements from, and that list of names there, those are my students from my urban geography class that created that first map in the summer, last summer. It seems like a million years ago. And then Dr. Claire Grove Johnson, who's our drone pilot. And thank you very much for your time and attention. Let's take any questions. An illegal ship that actually went to Africa after the transshipment of African people was banned, kidnapped about 110 individuals and attempted to bring them to Mobile, Alabama from West Africa in the area around Benin. And the Africans were released in about 1860 in what is now Mobile, Alabama. And of course, they were completely dissociated from African people who were here because they had been enslaved at this point for several generations. And, yes, the documentary will be on Netflix next week. It's called Descendants. They'll do a much better job than I'm doing right now. But what was significant about Africatown is after emancipation, these individuals who had known what it was like to be free started to build, buy land, built a school that's still there. And so that history was kind of lost until the flotilla was rediscovered a couple of years ago. And so now there's all this tension, and so we're trying to create a historical site for heritage tourism there in Africatown that will keep those resources in the community, and especially keep those resources in the purview of the
Your destination is on the left.
Hey y'all. Hey. Project Grow Houses. So we were founded in 1993 by 7 Black artists that were living and working in Houston, and they wanted to use art as a resource for community, right? So it begins with our grow houses here. So these were built in the 1930s, but by the 1990s they were abandoned and they were set to be destroyed. But our founders came together and they understood that these houses had a cultural significance and deep history, and that was by the work of an artist named John Biggers. So John Biggers, yeah, he's an amazing mid-century artist. He passed away in like the 1970s, but not before founding the arts department here at Texas Southern University. And when he was born in a house like these in North Carolina, and when he came to Houston, seeing them again, he was curious and researched and traced the origins of this architecture style back through New Orleans, Caribbean, and to Western Africa. So these houses have a lot of intention, and they're part of the African diaspora.
Do you know what part of Western Africa?
People connected them to the Yoruba people. Yoruba, yeah. So
People.
yeah, yeah. In fact, a lot of folks know them as shotgun houses, which we don't really like because it's connected to a lot of like our difficult history, right? Violence. Yeah. So we have found sources that explain that shotgun is the creolization of the Yoruba word shogun. Yes, meaning house of God. So it's just like a game of telephone, shogun. Meaning.
Can you repeat what you said? I missed
Oh,
it from
sorry. So yeah, it's, you know, people say shotgun, right?
Right.
That indicates that the front doors and the back doors line up, and when your doors line up, a cross breeze comes and pulls the house down. That's intention.
Right.
People also, we have found sources that explain that shotgun is a creolization of the word shogun,
Okay.
which is the Yoruba word for house of God.
House of God. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
missed.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Wasn't sure which part, so I was like,
Yeah.
let me just give it all again. Hey, welcome. So, you know, his work, his life and legacy inspired the next generation of artists who were our founders to now know their history and know the beauty of these houses and the intention. And that intention really is to foster community. They're about 500 square feet. And in the 1930s, there were multi-family homes, so 2 to 3 families per house meant that a lot of living was done outside on our front porches, which connect you to the external. And in the backyards, there were never fences separating houses. It was always this shared space. So that made for a community that, you know, if you're a child, your friend lived right next door, and y'all were always like together. And also parents were able to share resources, eyes, you know, and
Babysitting.
yes, and that history is still, yes, the village, exactly.
It takes
Like,
a village to raise a child or something like that.
so, you know, you're sharing these resources and this architecture. Just putting things together, and that history is still felt witnessed and we've been able to document it in the neighborhood today, you know? So taking that, the beauty of these houses and that history and that intention, and combining it with something called social sculpture. So social sculpture is a term coined by Joseph Beuys, who is a German artist. He came up with this idea in the 1960s. And so social sculpture, we're asking folks to view the people and the places around us, our community members, our brothers, our family, our house, our schools, as one grand work of art. All of it's one big collaborative piece. And we each are artists, and we each have the power to contribute to this grand work of art. So, you know, so with Project Burrow Houses, what we're doing is with art that is responsive of community, historic preservation of the history of the people, you know, not only people living here, the culture, the buildings, and direct community action efforts, such as we have income-based housing throughout 3rd Ward, and we serve over about 100 families in that way. We have some small businesses on site, including a radio station, a bakery, 2 bookstores, and a bike tour place, is super fun. And, you know, grocery distributions and, like, you know, small businesses support, and art that is responsive to community.
So I'm the Historic Research Director for the Yates Museum. This house here, organized in 1996. This house was built in 1912. The museum owns 5 additional properties. The house behind you, the Pullum House, and the house is on the corner. Well, let me get one thing straight. So Texas did know about Lincoln's 1863 proclamation. Let's get it straight. We're not ignorant. But those slaveholders said, because they were part of the Confederacy and they had their own constitution, they said, "Oh, hell no, we ain't doing that." Excuse me, minister. We ain't doing that. And as a matter of fact, they said, "We're not going to emancipate our slaves." So when Granger came down to Galveston, when he met the Union troops and some black ones, y'all, they came down to enforce the proclamation. These people are free. Well, y'all gonna let them go. So, because I came from a middle school environment, they came down these wagon trails that are highlighted here, you guys. Right? They came down these trails. They weren't no horse. They weren't in wagons. They were like this. Y'all know how to do this in June.
Upside down.
Y'all know how to do this in June and July. Yeah. You know how to do this in June because it's hot right now, right? Right. But here they go. Here they go, walking down these wagon roads and trails, leaving their places of bondage. Leaving those plantations, taking a chance on freedom, right? Children in tow. Y'all see that, right? You see the children in there? But most of them came from the Colorado and Brazos River plantations. Right. Walking, sleeping overnight on side of the road, in those dresses with the bugs and whatever else, right? But they came toward freedom. They came toward Houston, and they settled in what is now Allen Parkway Village. You guys smell Allen Parkway Village? Yeah. That's another story. Read that. But they settled there on the bayou, with mosquitoes, with that smelly snakes, everything, and prone to flooding. They stayed there until they could find someplace to live, someplace to eat, someplace to sleep. Because the Freedmen's Bureau didn't come until the fall of 1865. So can you imagine the chaos? White people seeing these black people come into town like, wait, what's going on? But they were trying to assimilate into that freedom, right? Yeah. So by 1866, there were like 166 structures on this side of West Dallas and the other side. Now, West Dallas used to be the San Felipe Trail. Let me show you how that looked, just to give you a visual. So, upside down again. So again, this is where they're coming from. San Felipe Trail, into Houston, into Houston, I'm saying downtown. Freedman Town, current Allen Parkway Village. And they were selling on this side as well. So this was Freedman's Town. Okay? So again, they're trying to assimilate. They're trying to, here. This way. That way. So again, they're trying to assimilate into freedom, and they were not African Americans because the 14th Amendment had not been ratified. They were persons of African descent. Sorry, okay? But again, the odds were against them with Reconstruction, the Jim Crow laws, but you guys made it. This is one example of the Yates House again, built in 1912 by Rutherford, a printer, son of Jack Yates. His beautiful two-story house was here. The family had to move to Sam Houston Park so they could take care of it. I totally get that. But we felt like it would have been a great centerpiece. Okay, we're going to be walking. Okay, let me get my phone. Okay, so we're walking. The brick street you're walking on, they've been begging for infrastructure. You guys are walking this way, right? They've been begging for infrastructure. So the streets were put down beginning in 1914 and again in 1922. This house you see belonged to Reverend Ned Pullum, born enslaved in Alabama, came to Texas in 1895. Reverend Lady Pullum, Alabama, Beaconsfield, Alabama. That's right. Okay, and so at one time there were 19 churches in this 40-block community, right? So Reverend Pullum said, wait a minute, this is some competition. I got to do something else. Reverend Pullum bought a brickyard. The only black man to own a brickyard in Houston and Texas. You know where he put it? Next to the white brickyards. Do you think you know how to run a brickyard? No, he had a white man do it. But this is the only house with brick around it. He owned 2 pharmacies and he had a shoe repair business. He was trying to start a gin and they shut him down. But again, this is elegance, and they built their houses to mimic their white counterparts. Because guess what? Their ancestors built all the houses. Right. They incorporated African design in these houses. This is a classic architecture, gingerbread trim at the top, the little U-shaped things at the top. That's African motifs to represent scales from the ocean. Okay? But again, you guys, when we get it, it's going to be a house for for pharmacy professionals. You guys, it's a beautiful house. Inside a grand foyer. Beautiful, because guess what? A minister got to have a nice home, right? Okay. Again, the trolley ran through here as well. And the city, over the time, picking up the bricks, trying to restore them. And they couldn't put them back. They made them put them back. Well, they can't put them back because once you pull these bricks up, the way they're put down with black hands, you can't put them back. So they're stretched. Huh? They should have tested them. Yeah, it's a major problem. As a matter of fact, they have several bricks they removed from the streets. But again, you know, we're fighting a battle. They still want to pull them up and put down proper infrastructure. You guys, this house belonged to Attorney J. Vance Lewis. I call him the forerunner of Johnny Cochran because he was good looking, he was suave, and he was dramatic in the courtroom. Okay? He had a black prominent architect build this home in 1907. Again, classic architecture, European wallpaper from hand-painted European wallpaper. Grand foyer entrance as well, plumbing. In 1907, the man had it going on. As a matter of fact, he bragged about how good he was in the city directions. Okay? He called this house Van's Court. So again, the trolley came through here and stopped, so if you needed a lawyer, Delta trolley, go see J. Vance Lewis. That's all you got to do. The house next door belonged to his wife's grandmother, Isabella Sims. This house was built in the late 1890s. The taxes go up, they can't stay here no more. They gotta move. So the city is all about money. Black mayor or not, I ain't taking it back. Okay. Yeah, so,
Question for Deborah?
yeah.
Comments?
I do have a card. I'll bring it with me. So, Tony, y'all gonna drive back down there?
Yeah, we're going to the library.
Okay.
Deborah will be there to meet
Okay.
us and get you some meat.
Okay, so when you guys drive back, I want you to look to the right. You'll see a shotgun house. The museum owns that. So shotgun is African for shogun, which means God talent. It does not necessarily mean you can stand there and shoot a gun. It's African architecture that came from Africa to Haiti to here, to Louisiana. So shotgun is shogun. Okay? So we don't talk about shooting guns on the hallway. We're talking about the importance of African architecture. Okay? The other structure is a barbershop, one of the earliest barbershops in this community. And somebody, when you see how small it is, somebody lives in that structure. Yes. They cut hair and live there. I can change my mind in that structure. It's so small, so tiny. But when you guys pass by, take a gander at it and look at it. So again, the museum owns this structure, and the 2 structures on the far right till you get to the Gregory Library. Okay? Okay.
we'll entertain a motion to express our sincerest appreciation to Deborah, the lady who got away with cursing out Tanya, and she's still alive. So we share with seriously expressing our appreciation. Entertain a motion. Moved and second by everyone. All in favor of the motion, give the sign of aye.
Well, I love this group. Trying to tell you, wherever she goes, I want to go. I love what you guys are doing. So I love you guys.
She's not a member.
Chair will entertain a
Well,
motion.
she made her member.
Thank you. And she specifically said that she needs financial support.
That's what I'm listening.
Add her to the list. Yeah.
Thank you.
He's trying to make you a member. Okay, everybody, be quiet. Go ahead.
Deborah, what we're about, we're the Historic Black Towns and Settlements Alliance, an organization that has three basic goals. We call them the 3 Ps: to preserve, protect, and promote our African American history, our rich history. That's what we stand for. And we'd love to have you as a member of our family.
Oh, thank you.
Put you in our network. What we try to
you.
do is help identify funding for our members and their organizations. And so we'll entertain a motion to have Deborah join us as a member of the HBTSA family and the World Conference of Mayors as well.
This was the school my mama went to. Here?
Hey, break that thing.
This lady not only fights for Houston, but for the whole nation and the world. Particularly how she stood up against the January 6th attack on our Capitol, and just in general, during the impeachment of Donald Trump. I mean, she has been America's Congresswoman.
Oh my God, we love it.
Yeah, we last marched together in Selma.
That's right. That's right.
But these are members of the World Conference of Mayors and the Historic Black Towns and Settlements. And we've seen all of Houston today.
Yeah, I love it.
Tanya DeVos, come on up. She's the one who worked so hard to organize all of this. And we're going to make it. And where is Dr. Michelle Robinson?
What's going on, she will swoop in and she'll make it happen, all right? And I don't care what state you're in or where you are. And so I want you to know that she is a national treasure for us. She is a Houston treasure. And I have the honor of being in her district. And she makes sure that we have what we need. And when I talked about the freeway, when I talked about the funding that comes to our communities, she's the reason why these things happen. And so you have to know how to work with your elected officials. They can't do it all. But what you can do is you can help them by giving them what they need in order to do what they need to do here in this state, but also on Capitol Hill. And so without further ado, Sheila Jackson Lee.
Well, it is my honor. It is my honor to be with the World Conference of Mayors and to be here to welcome you and to be able to tell my boss. I was listening to the song all the way here. I never would have made it without you. I said, I better make it here today. Let me thank Deborah as well for all of the work that you do dealing with the history of our community. I am so grateful to you. to the mayors that are here, and to my dear, dear friend, Mayor Johnny Ford. He is, I mean, it is, both of us are toddlers when we met. So that I can say it's been decades, so you will not calculate our age. But it has been, of course, he is years older, but I was 2, he was 10. I was 2. But this work that he has crafted by bringing you all together is stupendous work.
It is.
I am glad that you're in what we have tried to preserve in the historic. This was Freedmanstown. This was Logan's Run. There's so much history here. This is where the cobblestones are here. The bricks that were laid by freed slaves. Bethel Church that almost burned down, that now we have remained as a framework. But as you can see, even in the housing design, it is only because of the community here that has fought to make sure that we can at least frame anything that is rebuilt to come in the framework of our ancestors. But what do I want to say about the black spots, the black places, our history? It is if we do not preserve it. I am entrenched in our history. I'm entrenched in the slave narratives that explain what it was like to pick cotton and to get up at 3 in the morning, not be partying until 3 in the morning, tipping into the house at 3 in the morning, but actually getting up for the master to tell you and to beat you when you could not understand how much he wanted you to make by the end of the day. I read a slave narrative and she indicated he beat me when I asked the question about how much did I need to bring in, and if I didn't bring in, I got beat again. We don't sense that kind of history, that we should touch and anoint those places that these folk walked. And they're all in your respective cities and towns, villages, urban and rural. They are all precious in his sight. And that is why I have no shame in the United States Congress to have pressed for 10 years. 10 years. I love Opal Lee. She is the grandmother. I'm the godmother of Juneteenth. Because it's our legislation. The girl from Texas, the 18th Congressional District, that wrote that legislation, introduced it, and it became law when the President of the United States signed it. And the idea of Juneteenth, the idea, Mayor Ford, was not to have it narrowly captured in Independence Heights, as Tanya has worked for us to know that history of that great city. And it's a city for me, because it's the first African American city. But it is, that holiday is not for folk, well, I don't like that, they're drinking soda pop. No, you are narrowly thinking. That holiday is an expansive holiday for cities that are led by black mayors across America and others to be able to put on the biggest extravaganza, to bring in economic dollars, engine. You can create whatever you want. That's a holiday for your people. You can make it. You can go from banquets to sales to selling cars to parades, all driven. You can make your city a destination site. You can say there will never be a bigger Juneteenth than at so-and-so city, led by Mayor so-and-so. You can have people coming down. I can assure you, you watch it, my friends. The first year, CNN had an extravaganza in Los Angeles. A big, gigantic concert. You can be assured the advertisers paid and they made money. Don't give short shrift to telling history and honoring Juneteenth. It's a gift to you all. It is about these spots. You can make Juneteenth your historic markers. Then our grave sites must be honored and cherished. Because so many of them were there and we ran over them. The weeds grew. We didn't know they were there. And I'm grateful to the communities that get up and clean those graves. Emancipation Trail, you never heard of. But we are writing the language and fighting to establish an Emancipation Trail, Mayor Ford. My legislation with John Cornyn to go from the place where Captain Granger announced the Freedom Order number 15 in Galveston, all the way up these small towns that you all have come from, to include Freedmanstown, 3rd Ward, and I got that last minute amendment, Independence Heights. Couldn't leave them out. And that is going to be an economic engine. There are tens upon tens of thousands who like to come and research. They'll spend money, they'll be in your hotels. Make your cities, mayors, make it a research place. Find something historic so that the anthropologists will come, the big universities will come. Oh, we've got to get down to Mayor Ford's town. Yes. We've got to get to Tuskegee. We know that. We've got to get down to this town and that town that you are mayors of. Yes. Make your own history that is real and truthful. Yes. Yes. And so my final point, this is the historian of Booker T. Washington. I keep looking at her. Lane is clearly a historian, and Booker T. Washington, a historic department. Put your buckets down. I kind of tell people that you have to understand the synergism of W.E. Du Bois and Booker T. They were two peas in a pod. They were collaborators. They knew that ones who could not do more than put their buckets down and work with their hands were as deserving as the talented 10. And so Tuskegee, thank you for lifting them up to be millionaires because they took their hands and they built. Just think if we had gotten 40 acres and a mule, my friends, we would have been conglomerates. We would have got that 40 acres and we would have maximized it to 200 acres and you would not have seen it. So my bill, John Conyers, your dear friend, introduced it in 1989, 1 year after the American Civil Liberties Act that compensated the Japanese, rightly so, that were interred in World War II. Interred in World War II. We supported that when the civil rights community. I was not in Congress. I was a baby way back. And so that passed. Reagan signed the bill. 1989, John introduced H.R. 40 acres and a mule. The commission to study slavery and develop, we modified it, we amended it, and developed reparation proposals. Do not put your bag on your hand talking about, oh, we're not going to get, no. Take the analytical analysis that I've looked at, and the trajectory of your slavery is penetrating into your community today. In health, psychology, sociology, and wealth. Today, a family of 4, average African American, 17,000, to an Anglo family, a white family of 177,000. I don't have a grudge. I'm not angry. I'm just busy to be able to look at the systemic response in healthcare, in keeping HBCUs open, in dealing with research in our institutions, in housing, in taking away the barriers to young families getting housing in our neighborhoods. I have written the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and I think it's a darn good letter to Chairman Powell. I said, you are hurting my people with raising the interest rates. Oh, my savings might get a little bit more, but I can't even get bread, and I can't go get an old rickety car, and I can't go get a house right now because you are raising the interest rates out of panic. When my unemployment is low, let it ride for a minute. Let it just ride for a minute. I know, but no one is going to see interest rates rise and bread going down. I can assure you. So if you are letting my money be less because I can't rehab my house or I can't buy another house or the interest rates are too much on a loan for my small business, then I'm not being helped. But that's the wealth that we have to address, and now we're in this mix, and you can be assured our wealth divide is even more. So the idea of this commission is to assess analytically with the kind of research that says what has been the impact today. What happened to the GIs who never got the GI Bill because they went south and they didn't have it? What happened to the domestic workers who never got Social Security under Franklin Delano Roosevelt? You have to understand. And so you inspire me. I simply want to say that I'm entrenched in this thing called history and who we are. And I believe it is a benefit to America when we lift our boats. Their boats are obviously riding. And when we tell our stories, when we tell our truth, it is a truth that America needs to restore and heal and repair. So I need your massive support on H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals. We're asking the President, Mayor Ford, to write an executive order so that we can get it done, because we have the votes in the House, but it is challenging in the Senate. And many of you should look up Senator Tuberville, who made the most ridiculous statement. And you should all tweet about it. Because it insults all. And he put the word BS in the middle of maligning what reparations are. How dare he? And so I'm going to end. You got dinner or you're going to dinner. I just simply want to say I had to get by here. I was at my office and I said, which I'm right here downtown, getting ready for the next level of places I have to go. But I said, I've got to go to see all of you and to welcome you to the 18th Congressional District. This is still in my district. Historically, from Barbara Jordan, went to church here at good old Missionary Baptist Church, kind of relocated, but the heart of the family is still here. And this is in my DNA, Freedmanstown, 4th Ward, and you are honored us at the Gregory Lincoln School, which I provided $2 million to get it off the ground. And I am excited about what they have done. Along with Republican senators, so I get with anybody to preserve our history. I love you all. I'm so honored to be on board. It is an honor.
Accomplish our 3 P's. What are they? Preserve, protect, and promote. And there's a lot of money out there. Federal government, state government. So we need to just have a coordinated strategy to apply for everything we see. I mean, the more we send in, the better our chances are. So let's go for it. President Biden has been very good at making resources available for local communities and nonprofits. Let's take advantage. This session emphasized how important it is for us to carry out our mission, and that is to preserve, protect, and promote our African American history and heritage. And this whole session, Black Spaces and Places, has been an exciting visit to our historic past. So I'm excited about it. I want to commend the committee for putting together a great program. And to our younger generation, just remember the struggle, the blood, sweat, and tears shed in yesteryears by forefathers who made it possible for our younger people to enjoy the liberty and the freedom that they enjoy today. But the struggle goes on, and my message to the younger people: we are going to hand off the torch to a new generation. You must continue to carry on where we've left off.